So let's move on to the bass group. Here we have some rhythm bass, what I have already talked about earlier. So it has the same rhythm like the percussion. You can see it has like a little bit more in the like mid-range frequencies than the percussion, and it's like a little bit more rounded, and it just gives a nice groove, so that even if there are not many elements in some parts playing, you still have this like very consistent like rhythm which is going on all the time. And what I would try to imagine is that people can like move or dance even to like the very like main elements, and even if there are no synths playing, because if you can't dance to your like rhythm and drum group alone, you probably have an issue here, yeah? Because still even with just these elements, you should still like move and dance a little bit to it, and then the other elements build on a very strong foundation, instead of like have a weak foundation and trying to fix that with like better elements on top. And that's also I learned it the hard way, because when I started producing, I didn't focus too much on that, like more on the main elements like synths and stuff. But if you have a very weak foundation, it's very hard to make a good track if your drums on like rhythms are not on point. So that's why I would recommend to invest a little bit more time in that to get a very good foundation. Then you can build something on top, and it will always be better. Here we have some steps. Yeah, that's just like on the first bar and on the fourth bar of just these like aggressive bass steps to like yeah, transition a little bit. Here we can hear it in context. See, it's like a kind of like call and response with the lead sounds. So the bass step like kicks in on the first part, and then it goes away, and the lead takes over a little bit, and it takes the delay of the synth like takes the rest of the space here, and it like kind of disappears slowly, and then the next bass step is hitting. I'm using just two different sounds. You can also use the same, but then it kind of gets a little bit boring over time if it's always the same. So I have used a very like unpopular synth, but I once it was on sale, and it still kind of was on sale, and it's very cheap. And I think I bought it, yeah, for €1, so you can't go wrong for like €1. And I still use it sometimes. It has a like very distinct sound. It has like, it kind of pretty much sounds very analog because it's a little bit unstable and stuff. It looks a little bit intimidating at first, but you kind of have like here just your generators, and then you have some filtering. And here you can, for example, has like an age setting where you can set the drift and dust, so like kind of make it a little bit more of sounding old, and yeah, for specific sounds it can be really good. But it has a kind of like specific sound, and I really like that. That's why I still use it a lot. And here I have just this sound. So you can see that the amp in the rock setting here adds a lot of this like very crispy sound, and you can see that I'm using just 11% dry wet, so it's very little. But sometimes heavy distortion added just a little bit can go a long way, and the saturator will just also here just 50% dry wet will exaggerate it even more, and then just here's some EQ to make it a little bit here to cut the sides and cut the very lows. Yeah, here it's pretty much the same. The only thing I did is I kind of like tweaked the sound so it's a little bit different. So you can also see it's a different preset. I usually like often I just I have my own presets built in my library already, but often I just flip through the presets, and if I like something, then I just keep tweaking the presets because it's faster than making stuff from scratch. And that's what I do a lot, and that's okay. People do sound design like as a main job, so why not using the stuff they make? And in this case, it's all factory presets. So I just have that. It hasn't are really a lot of presets, but still you have some groups here, and you can see that in every group, like you have like 20-30 presets or maybe less, but some are good, and you can just tweak from there and then make it your own. And that's what I did with these two bass steps, and here we have this other one, which is a like kind of a preset from my library. You can see it's a rack, so I've already made that. You also see that I have often, it's also that the processing is pretty much the same. So like if you have the main sound or the main sound from your synth or from your sample, right, then you don't need a lot of processing. Back in the day when I started, I did too much processing because I tried to make a bad sound good, and it's kind of not a really good idea. So what I try is make a good sound better, and mostly I use saturation and EQ, and that's it. Here in the group we have also some the limiter just for safety, but I think it will not do a lot. So you can see it also just takes like 1 or 2 dB from the parts where it's a little bit or it's like kicking in, and just takes it down a little bit to save some headroom, but otherwise not much going on here. Then let's move on to the leads. Here we have some pads. So what I was going for, I had like this kind of like, it was like really like spacey cosmic with these vocals, and I had this idea like, okay, like get some sound which is like a little bit like a choir, and this angelic pad which is like make it a little bit like, so like heavenly, or I don't know what to call it. And I'm using different notes in different parts. So in some parts I have just a root note, then I'll add a fifth, and then I'll add 1 octave up to just even enhance it more and like make it more like interesting or more apparent. And this gives it a very like church cosmic kind of whatever feel. It really fits the vibe of these tracks. That's why I really liked it, and all together. Yeah, that's what I did with the pads. The pads are really important, in especially like this more like cosmic and melodic tracks, to give the track space and dimension. So don't forget about them. They are important, even if they are just playing in the background. And so in a lot of times you really don't really notice it, but it gives the track a feeling, and the feeling needs to be right there. So it has to fit the vibe of your track, but then it adds really a lot. And here we have the main lead. Okay, let's just check the MIDI. Here you can see it's in G. So we have like, let's see, we have root note. Let's go a bit into. Then we have, I think, yeah. Isn't really, yeah, no, sorry. I think I made a mistake. It's in D, not in G. Yeah. And so we have the root note here. Then we have the fifth. Here the sixth. It's, I think it's here the fourth. And so it's like with this cosmic melodic elements. Usually you need to go up the scale and so up and down the scale a lot, like you're moving like very quickly over different octaves, and that's what kind of gives this like kind of sound or feeling, so that like really quickly going up and down, like, and that's making this cosmic melodic tracks. Yeah, and here we can see we go up, down, and then here up, down, up again, like, and that's like what gives a feeling. And if you have a pattern like that, you can just switch up the notes to make like second or third variant of it. So here it's like, it's similar, you can see, but I moved up and down some notes, and that kind of like gives it a different feeling on the different parts. So you can see it's a kind of like call and response. So the first is it's a question, and the second is a like response. It's a like answer, and it's like very basic production method. If like the notes are going up, it's like a more of a question. So like. So like, because if you're asking someone, you say, it's like, from, if you think about how you like just how it sounds if you ask a question, and then how it sounds if you answer. Then if you answer something, then it kind of, the pitch will more go down at the end, and with a question will likely more go up, and that's what kind of makes these call and response patterns. And it's really effective. It's used a lot in compositional writing. And here I have just different layers. Here I have this like kind of, which are called vintage lead layer. Then I have another layer, my dreamy lead, which is like a pretty much heavy, like saw based detune kind of vibe. And this is like a very like sharp transient heavy one, which will emphasis the transient on the whole group, to make it really like punchy and in the front. So you can see it's not like these layers. You can just toggle them on and off. So you can see it's not like the vintage sheet is like still the main sound, but they add the attack lead adds really punch to the sound, and the dreamy lead kind of gives it more like atmosphere, a little bit more crisp, and in the high frequencies, and that's what you're going for with layering. You don't try to reinvent the wheel and like make a completely different sound. You make just the sound you have a little bit more interesting and give it like a bit of my kind of different feel, or just add on top of it. And that's important with layering, that you stack up sounds which will fit together to create a new, even better sound, instead of like kind to tweak this one sound you already have, because sometimes it's easier to get the sound you want with layering instead of processing the sound you already have. Because, for example, if I have this vintage lead sound, so like saw-based sound, it's still a saw-based sound, but if you want to add a like more square or triangle-based sound on top, sometimes it's easier to just add a second layer, and then together you create a kind of like new sound, which is probably then often more unique. And that's what I do often with lead sounds or ARPs, to stack 2 or 3 sounds together to create a whole new sound. Then we have some processing here, just some auto filter for automating, and then I have my pitchy tape delay ping pong, or better would it be called pitchy ping pong tape delay, which is a kind of tape delay style delay, kind of like sounding a little bit old and vintage. Let's hear it here. Oops. And so what this does is, you can see here in this section here is the leads. The leads are playing here, and then it just fills out the space. Oops. Here on this the last 2 bars before the bass step kicks in again, and that's what the kind of delay is for. It kind of fills up the space which is otherwise empty, and so the lead sound also is like disappearing over time a little bit more smoothly. And that really like works really well with leads where you don't have them playing all the time, so you have just a pattern playing and then a break. That's often a very good case where you can fill it up with delay and reverb, or the combination usually. You can also put a lot of reverb on your delay, which sometimes sounds cool. And that's also a tip what a lot of people forget about. Make sure that your delay is also going to some kind of reverb, because if the delay is completely dry and it has no reverb, it sounds super artificial and not really like kind of natural. And that's just a tip from my side. So for example, if you're using return channels and you route just the delay to the return channel, also make sure that the return channel is somehow gets into a reverb. You can also do it on the delay on the return channels, because the return channels here they have also Synths, so you can send the return into another return. And in this case it was easy because I had it on the channel. So this channel, as you can see, has some sense. It goes into 2 different, in a short reverb and a long reverb. And so that's how you get a more natural sound for also for your effects. And that's for the main sound. And we have this arpeggio here. Let's see. What you can hear here is that I have a kind of auto panning. It's a like LFO panning it a little bit from left to the right side, and so the kind of the sound is like keeps moving all the time, because it like randomly pushes it to the left or the right. And since on both channels it's a little bit different, it like kind of keeps moving all the time. And it's also a trick to keep the stuff more interesting. And here we have also on the leads, I'm using Omnisphere a lot. Omnisphere has really loads of presets, thousands of presets. It's really so much that you probably can go through them all. But the cool thing is about Omnisphere, it takes up years to load because it's often has a lot of samples. It's also sample based, but still has you can still has some oscillators. You can combine them to have oscillators playing, like digital oscillators, and then you can have like sample based sounds on top. But the library from them is really huge, and they have some cool here a system where you can browse through categories, you can switch by types, even genres, and then what I really like is if I find something which I like, then I often hit the sound match, and the sound match will find other presets which will sound similar to the one you have selected, and then you get different presets which will sound like this preset you have selected, and then it's easy to find something good, because I will firstly just find something which I'm approximately looking for, then hit the sound match, and then I will get a bunch of presets like which will sound similar, and then I will just find one which I like and tweak it from there. Same concept, just some amp and EQ. Which will just give it a little bit more dirt. And here in the second layer, I'm using Diva. Diva is also really nice. I really like it. I use it a lot in my techno productions, especially for like the melodic stuff. It's really cool. And yeah, same process here, just a little bit of amp. Make it a little bit more crisp, and yeah, give it a little bit more crunch. Also here, just very low, 25% dry wet. So that's it. Let's just quickly see the notes we are playing. So we have the root note here. Then we have the 5th, 6th, 4th, 7th, 4, and just moving up and down very quickly. And the way how I made this stuff is also a kind of like keep playing in one bar and try to make a pattern, and like going up and down and find something cool. And if you find a good pattern which works over one bar, I will just extend it to 8 bars, and then just here change a little bit every 1 bar, especially like on the end. And that's what kind of like makes it sound different, even if it's pretty much the same 1 bar loop, but it changes every 1 bar, every 2 bars, so that there is a kind of change, and that flows a little bit better, especially here at 4 bars or here at 8 bars. You need to make a change, because otherwise it sounds really boring. You need some kind of transitioning at these places to just sound more dynamic and not static. In the up group, we have also some processing here. And here you can see actually what I told you about the panning. The panning is actually on the group, and what this does is we have a multi-chain panning, and you see, what the fuck, multi-chain panning, what are you doing here? Well, I'm I'm trying to pan, but I don't want to pan the whole sound from left to right, because otherwise then if it's on the left there's nothing on the right, if it's on the right then nothing on the left. It kind of still sounds strange. And what I did is I kind of split it into 2 frequency bands and said, okay, well, when the low frequencies or the low mid frequencies move to the left, the high frequencies will move to the right. And this way you get a kind of very interesting sound, because like the frequencies will move in the different direction, so the lows and the highs are exactly on the same side, and then will just overlap all the time, and it gives a, I think, cool effect. So that's something you can think about, that if you have only one sound and you want to pan it, you don't have to pan the complete sound in one direction. You can even split up the frequencies and pan the different frequencies on different sides, and that kind of gives like a cool spacey effect. Here the shaper boxes are very here you can select the steepness of the color filter, and if you use 6 dB, it's very smooth, and 6 dB actually is transparent, and doesn't introduce any phase issues. If you go higher, like especially with 24 dB, there will be some phase problems on the cutoff point. But since this is very smooth anyway, and then you don't need a hard cut, 6 dB is perfect and will get the job done very smoothly. Then we have the track spacer. Probably a lot of you guys already heard about it. The track spacer is very nice because it is a kind of a multi-band sidechain tool. It has I don't know how much bands, I think like 20 or 30 or something. And you have a low cut and a high cut here, which I haven't used in this case because I want to duck the whole frequency range. But it's nice also sometimes to only duck a specific frequency range. That's very easy to achieve. Here you have the amount, dry wet amount, and here you have some settings where you can set up attack release. And what I'm doing here is that I'm sidechaining the ARP to the main lead. So that means when the main lead is playing, it will duck down the arpeggio so that the main lead is really in front and has enough space. And then if it goes away, smoothly the ARP is introduced again and will take over the space where the lead is not playing. And so you can hear this in combination. We'll also see it in the graph here. So this is the kind of effect, like if the lead is playing, the ARP is ducking down, and you don't have to duck it completely, that it's completely gone. You have just maybe duck it 5 dB, 10 dB, and then it's just a little bit more in the back. The lead is very up front, takes all the space, and then if the lead goes away, the ARP comes back in, and so you have a kind of like call and response thing going on here as well with these two elements. And this gives you also a bit more space, more clarity of your elements, and more headroom because you are not adding up all the elements. And so try to make sure that not all the sounds are overlapping at the same time. Try to give them their own space. And for example, if the lead is playing, the lead is the main element, and I want to hear the lead in front and not the arpeggio, so I will just duck down the arpeggio. So sidechaining, sometimes people only sidechain things to their kick, but sidechaining can be used a lot as well in other scenarios, especially with stuff like vocals, or you have like a more main element which is not playing that all the time but only some steps, for example, or just a short pattern. And that's like a great use case where you can sidechain these elements to different ones so that they will duck them down, and so they will take the space and be present, and the other ones will go away a little bit, but only in the parts where these main elements are playing. And it works really well, so just keep that in mind. Then we have some shots. Yeah, we need some synth shots in techno. So basically we have this like actually this bright, like more rhythm based shot. So it kind of like gives it a little bit groove here. Then we have these other steps just to add some interest. I think this is, yeah, this is Serum from a very good friend. I think it's from his pack, Zen World. Makes some good presets. Check out his channel. Also makes some great tutorials. And another step here with Diva. And also, as you can see, I've only have the synth and then some EQ, and that's it. Often you don't need a lot more than that. And here on the shots group, also very important, I use clipping or limiting. Depends. I always try clipping first and see if it works. Sometimes it's a little bit more, if you can really hear it, it's too much, then I will go more for limiting. Depends on the sounds, you have to try it out. There's really no like use this on that sound and use this on that sound. You have to try it. But I don't know if they are doing anything here. In this case, I will just have them here for safety reason. Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually they're doing something here. So what with these shots, often what you have is that since they're like pretty short, but then they are like pretty loud, so you can hear it in the context of the mix, that they will hit probably or they add up with the other elements and then hit the limiters, and I don't really want that. So I will limit them just a few dBs to really like make it really compact so that they are still audible, but I don't want to take up a lot of headroom just with these like shot sounds, because they're not my main elements, right? But altogether they will just add some, like what people like ear candy, I will call it ear candy. It makes the track a little bit more interesting and dynamic. We have these little elements, also effects on top. And let's just play here the leads and bass together. Yeah, so they work well together. Then I have some FX sounds, like pretty basic stuff. Here, for example, like my uplifters, downlifters, just some white noise. Yeah, you know, just to hide the transitions a little bit more. We have some risers here at the bottom as well. And this will just make the transition work a little bit better. There's some basic white noise, really can help a lot sometimes, and some risers in the build-up to make it like a little bit more interesting, so that you kind of expect something to happen. Then we have some 2FX sounds. Yeah, and this is something like what a lot of people also forget about, that this little effect sound can really make a difference and make it really interesting. Like it make it also more complex. Like even the small changes you hear in the background, that it kind of makes it really really kind of interesting. I don't know how to otherwise call it. So don't just put the like basic elements, just put like 2-3 sounds on top, just hear like a little bit splash, a little bit of noise, yeah, a little hits. You can also use like real world sounds if you like sample something. Like these Foley sounds work really well for that. Just throw it into a reverb and delay. And yeah, that just helps with making it overall a little bit more interesting and hide the transitions. Then final element, here we have like vocal sound, and you see that I've heavily cut it in different parts because I had like this very long vocal sample where someone like kind of, it's, I don't know if it's from a movie or from an interview, someone talks about like Spacecraft, and maybe you can already guess where the name of the track comes from. Let's hear it.
It probably really hit me when I got inside the craft and looked around and began to understand how the craft was operated, and finally grasped the whole project as a whole.
So, and you might also ask now, okay, why have you split it so heavily? Well, first I had it just playing over the track, and it was okay. But the problem is that, as we have seen with the lead sound is playing in these different spots, and then if you have a vocal on top over the lead sounds, it gets a little bit lost, and that's what I was trying to avoid, and that's why I've really heavily cut it, is because I wanted to have no vocals in these parts where the leads are playing, so that it's also a kind of call and response, so that the guy says something and then the lead sound comes in front, and then he just keeps continue talking, and that was the reason why I had to cut it that heavily. Let's see it in the context.
And finally grasp the whole project as a whole. We weren't building this thing. We were trying to find out how it was made. We were back engineering it. When I first got to look inside the craft, all I can say, it's an ominous feeling. You walk in there and
so you can see that my goal was to try to have no vocals in the parts where the lead is playing, just to give the lead the space, and then it's just, like, even with the vocals it's a kind of call and response, and in some parts it's not perfect, but it is good enough so that it works, and that's the cool stuff with, like, you can rip vocals from YouTube for a radio show or whatever, and mostly like stuff like this is free to use, so that you don't have to pay any royalties or something to anyone. You can just rip it from there. A lot of people ripped even stuff from like famous movies and use it in their track, so sometimes you have to be careful, but with like interviews and stuff or documentation, it's pretty easy to get away with that. No one will care about it, and it's often really works great in this kind of techno tracks because it gives like this vintage radio feel. And here I have also some reverse reverb just to introduce it a little bit, and so that the vocal just doesn't come in so completely out of nowhere.
it probably really hit me.
So if you're checking out in the whole context, you can kind of feel that something is coming, and not something just keeps talking from out of nowhere.
It probably really hit me.
That's kind of this like reverse reverb trick, which I'm using a lot actually for vocals, but in this case I didn't use it for the main lead, but I could have used it, and I think it would have worked really well also for the reverb, that before the lead comes in, you have a like kind of short reverse reverb. This would be actually pretty cool, but obviously I was too lazy to do it because you know, we are all lazy, but stuff like this pays off. So think about if you have a pattern going which is just playing in one spot and then there's a longer break between. It can be really cool to have a reverb, a reverse reverb going into the pattern, because it kind of like introduces already, you know it's coming, and it sounds really good, and I've used it in a lot of tracks actually. So my recommendation, yeah, try it out. And yeah, you can see in the break there's not, or let's quickly talk about the arrangement.